So, what if your entire life, your thoughts, your feelings, your very existence was a constant radio transmission between you and the universe? Well, that's the wild idea at the heart of a pretty fascinating spiritual framework from R.S. Ryder's text, Our Eternal Infinity. Today, we're going to decode what it presents as nothing less than a cosmic operating system for humanity, a guide to syncing up our personal frequency with the universe itself.
And the ambition here is massive, and you see it right from the get-go. The dedication is to every single entity on Earth. So it's immediately setting this huge universal tone. It's trying to solve what it sees as a core human problem, that feeling of being disconnected, like there's spiritual static in the air. And the book gives this state a very specific name: dissonance.
So, here's how it breaks down. You're either in a state of dissonance, basically you're broadcasting static, fear, and doubt, or you're sending out a pure signal, which is all about alignment, gratitude, and love. The key idea here is that life isn't just something that happens to you. The book says it's a constant two-way communication, a kind of quantum conversation happening between you and some central source.
And what is that central source? Well, get this. It's called the God megahertz. That's the book's term for the one universal frequency that everything and everyone is tuned to. So the entire journey laid out in this text is about cleaning up your personal signal to get a perfect, crystal clear connection to this frequency. And according to the book, this isn't some vague go-with-the-flow quest. It's a really clear, structured, three-phase process.
All right, so the whole journey is broken down into these three divine phases. First, you have divine downloads, where you receive the universal laws. Then come the divine uploads, where you start transmitting your own frequency back. And finally, the divine mandates, which is all about fulfilling your mission. So let's start at the beginning with phase one, learning how to tune in.
So phase one, these divine downloads, it's all about reception. Think of it like tuning an old school radio to find a clear station. The book describes these downloads as perfect, unchangeable truths sent straight from the Creator. They aren't philosophies you're supposed to debate. They're presented more like fundamental laws of cosmic physics, and they arrive in your consciousness like ripples in a still pond.
And what kind of cosmic laws are we talking about here? Well, you see things like zero-point alignment, which the book describes as this process of returning to a state of pure potential, before all the noise of thought and judgment kicks in. These are truths that are meant to be received, but how do you actually receive them? This is where it gets really interesting. The book says your own body is the antenna, a concept it calls a micro-kingdom. So your body, it's not just a vessel. It's a sovereign micro-kingdom. The text even calls it a perpetual reactor that is constantly radiating its own unique frequency signature out into the universe. Okay, so once you've learned how to listen, what's next? Well, now you talk back. And that brings us right to phase two.
And here it is, phase two, the divine uploads. This is where things get active. If the downloads were all about receiving the signal, the uploads are all about you intentionally broadcasting your signal back out. This is where you transmit your own unique frequency, all your joys, your pains, your wins, back to that divine source. You're not just a listener anymore. You're an active participant in this cosmic conversation.
And these uploads, they're active, conscious practices, things like breathing exercises, visualization, even music. But they all point to this really core idea for this phase, the act of surrender. And here's the twist. The book frames surrender not as defeat or giving up, but as this incredibly powerful decision to consciously align your own will with the flow of the universe. It's an act of what it calls eternal consent. Okay, so once you've mastered receiving and sending, what's the whole point? Well, that leads us to the grand finale of this system, phase three, the divine mandates. This is all about fulfilling your mission. You move beyond just your own personal alignment and into the active, conscious co-creation of humanity's collective destiny. And believe me, the scale here gets absolutely cosmic. We're talking about mandates like our global interstellar destiny, which is presented as humanity evolving into a spacefaring species, and our cosmic passport, which is kind of like your spiritual credentials for this whole journey. It frames your individual purpose as just one part of this grand planetary evolution. So how does this all fit together as a system for living? Well, at the end of the day, the ultimate takeaway is that this book presents itself as a complete spiritual operating system. It actually uses the term system restore key to describe what it does. It's a tool designed to wipe the corrupted code of dissonance and restore your personal frequency to its pure original state, perfectly in sync with the God megahertz. So to quickly recap the big ideas here, our eternal infinity sees life as a two-way radio transmission between you and the universe. The journey to get a clear signal follows those three phases: downloads, uploads, and mandates. The entire goal is just to get rid of that dissonance, that static, and transmit a pure signal. And what's so interesting is how it does all this by mixing these ancient spiritual ideas with language that sounds like it's pulled from quantum physics and computer science. And that leaves us with a really fascinating question. What does this mashup, this fusion of ancient faith and really modern, almost sci-fi language, tell us about our search for meaning today? I mean, the text itself is a perfect example of this intersection. It's a spiritual system packaged as a technological upgrade for the human soul. And that is a pretty compelling idea to think about.